Welcome back to Anchorman's Should You Buy series. For those of you just tuning in, this is a review first impression show to give you an accurate idea of what a game is like before you buy it. I show realistic gameplay, give you the rundown of the setup, story, and gameplay, and then rate the game based on a price scale. Today we are reviewing Mafia 3, which I've played for about 40 hours, so let's get started. Mafia 3 is a third-person open-world shooter following Lincoln Clay, a Vietnam Special Forces vet taking down the Italian Mafia in the city of New Bordeaux, which is basically New Orleans. This is the third Mafia game in the series, taking place about 15 to 20 years after the events of Mafia 2, with Vito, who returns as an underboss for Lincoln. As a newcomer to the series, I found it very easy to pick up and jump into. Older games not really required to have a good time, but may add a bit of flair to the experience with Vito. Now, the story is set in the documentary style of main characters in the game recalling Lincoln's past and how he took down the Italian mob, which is great for framing events and puts a good emphasis on major points of the story. The story picks up with Lincoln returning home from his tour in Vietnam to his childhood friends and those who raised him, when he's presented with the opportunity in the form of a heist to repay the debt his family owes. When their partners betray them and leave Lincoln for dead, Lincoln begins a one-man revenge quest, stabbing, shooting, and blowing up anyone who stands in his way. The story is easily the best part of the game, with excellent dramatic cutscenes, unique characters like Burke, the Irish borderline terrorist, Vito, the Italian-made man, and the voodoo queen Cassandra. The intro sequence for the story and gameplay was probably the best tutorial I've ever played, and I loved every minute of it. The story was like digital cocaine, and I powered through the gameplay, which I'll get to in a minute, for just another second of the story. This game could have been a Game of the Year contender if it weren't for the gameplay. The gameplay is just generic, honestly. It doesn't really expand beyond the same infiltration-based gameplay of stabbing people and shooting them with slight variants of pistols, assault rifles, and shotguns. The driving is fun. It has really neat camera angles, especially when you make a sharp turn, but the base mechanics are just mediocre at best. Now, taking over territory is fun, and infiltration is one of my very favorite things to do, and Mafia 3 does just an okay job at this. It just really lacks in depth, and it shows. Enemies don't get harder, they're just more of them as you progress. And taking over territory is about as complex as the game gets. When you start, you talk to a contact in the area who informs you of how the underboss runs the area and their operation, how to take them down. Then you engage in odd jobs like taking down an outpost, rescuing hookers, or just general destruction to weaken and draw out the lieutenants. And you either kill them or recruit them to your racket. Now, when you take over a racket, you can hand them off to one of your underbosses who have unique upgrades available. So that when you take out all the rackets in the area, you unlock a story mission, and once complete, you decide which underboss you want to hand off the entire area to. And there are consequences for the order in which you hand off territories, and an underboss might break off and even rebel against you. It's a fun balancing act, but that's really the only novelty in terms of the gameplay here. So to recap, Mafia 3 is an excellent story, and the territory system is pretty fun, but the gameplay is just okay, and doesn't evolve over the course of the game. I don't really do numerical rating system on here. We don't do stars, we don't do anything like that. Instead, we go for price. For Mafia 3, if you find this game for about $30, it's well worth the price for the story alone, but pace it out so you don't get turned off by the gameplay. Anyway, guys, that was my short little review of sorts, Should You Buy a series for Mafia 3. Thank you guys for checking it out. I'll see you guys later.